Hopefully you had success going through this exercise. Now, if you manage to get the solution and you understand where the overflow occurs and why, then fantastic work. Fantastic. You are making strides. Now, if you're a little unsure, this is what I'm here for. This is what we're here for. So let's give this a shot together. So what we want to do in this main function is create an unsigned variable of 16 bits and then assign the variable to the max total of the range formula applied to 16 bits. So we have the range formula right here. But let's first go ahead and actually create this variable. Now it doesn't say what you should name the variable. It says it for these two, but not for this. I'm going to go ahead and just name it time since we're dealing with time and overtime. So I'm going to go up into the main function over here. And we're going to say let time, and remember this is unsigned, so we're going to say we want it to be 16 bits. So that's how we set it to an unsigned positive value, the range of 16 bits. And we want it to be the max value of 16 in that range. Now, which formula would represent the unsigned? Well, it's this one, right? We know it goes from 0 to 2 to the power of n minus 1. Now, if we want the max value in a range, what's the max value? Well, the max value is going to be the highest value, right? In this case, it's not going to be 0 because that will be lower than whatever this number will be, right? 2 to the power of anything minus 1, I imagine, is going to be only positive whole numbers, I imagine, is always going to be higher than 0. But we can put our imagination aside and even test the values out for ourselves. So if we want to test 16, and this is our formula, well, I could go to the calculator over here. So this is desmos.com/scientific calculator. All right. So you could just use any kind of scientific calculator. You could do 2 to the power of n minus 1. All right. I could replace n with 16, and we see we get a number, 65,535. So this number would be our max value. This would be the range, the max value part of the range. Okay. x2, right? So this number, 65,535, I can set to time. All right, so that's the first part of the exercise. If you figured this out, excellent work, excellent work. All right, number 2, we want to create 2 more variables, overtime 1, overtime 2, where overtime 1 has an overflow value of 0, and overtime 2 has an overflow value of 1. Now, this could be done in any way. It doesn't have to be 16 bits. It could be 8 bits, as long as you've applied an overflow value. Since I'm running already with this whole time thing, and now I'm adding the overtime, I'm going to continue with 16 bits. Now, if I know that 65,535 over here is a max value for 16 bits of unsigned values on the positive side of the range, 65,536 should give us what? Well, that's going to be 1 over, and we explicitly stated in integer overflows that anything that goes over the data type would start at 0. So 65,536 would start at 0. That's a little bit confusing. That means that you're probably newer to computer programming in general. But typically, in coding, we tend to start with our index values at 0. Okay, so how can I actually express this in code? Well, not so bad. I think I could do 2 more variables. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to switch this to overtime 1 and overtime 2. And we're going to add 1 here and add 2, right? This should actually give us an overflow of 0. This should give us an overflow of 1. Finally, we want to print the results and check the console. All right. So we have our prints over here. So I'll just copy one of these prints. I'm going to switch this to time. So the time is, and let's get the overtimes as well. And we don't need these indents. So let's bring this back. The overtime 1, or wait. The overtime 1, like that. And we do overtime 2. Okay. Now, if we go ahead and we run this code now, let's see what happens in the console. I'll pull up the console. we get an error. We get two errors. We get overtime 1, which is 65,536, because we know this is 1 over. And we even get a note. And check out the note. Note, the literal 65,536 does not fit into the type U16. And you have the range explicitly declared here. So even if you don't believe me and my calculations, you don't have to. Look at the Rust console itself. It's telling us, it's actually giving you part of the solution right now, right? And then we get it again for overtime 2 because we're over. We do not get the literal out of range for our time because our time is at the max value. It's still within range. And all right, that's a solution. That's a solution. So I think this is this should be a pretty clear way to understand range, overflow, and integers in Rust. I see a lot of documentation out there that's quite convoluted. Hopefully this breaks it down for you in terms that are simple to understand and deduce. And then it's just a question of practice so that you can get the hang of it, the hang of the rules, the coding, the syntax. But let's stop right here. Great work. And whenever you're ready, I'll see you for more Rust in the next video. Bye-bye.